What's up, y'all? You're listening to the My Aggie Nation podcast. I'm Alex Miller, joined always by Robert Cessna Cease. It is A&M's second bye week. We get 2 bye weeks about every, 4 or 5 years, just how the calendar falls. This is one of them. And let's be honest, I think it's coming at a pretty good time for the Aggies, considering they're coming off a 24-point loss at South Carolina, where things just really got off the rails in the second half.
Yeah, when you stop and think they come back and they play New Mexico State, which is a struggling team, they should win that game. So they really have 3 weeks to prepare for Auburn, and then we all know that Texas is at the tail end. But man, a lot of things couldn't be better for A&M. When you look, the schedule has been favorable all year long, and who would have thunk it after their only loss during the season? Notre Dame, you're fresh. But to have a bye after your loss, I think is great.
Well, and there's 2 really big areas, one on each side of the ball that A&M really needs to figure out, and one that both sides really need to figure out. We'll start with defense, because I think the missed tackles is the one that people really noticed during the South Carolina game. According to Pro Football Focus, if you trust those figures, A&M missed 25 tackles against the Gamecocks, and I don't think you have to tell people that for them to believe it. It was pretty evident the Aggies struggled to tackle, and Mike Elko kind of alluded to it was kind of a problem that had been building in recent weeks, and then when you play a team like South Carolina that's got a 240-pound quarterback, a 230-pound running back, 260-pound tight end, I mean, it just was the perfect storm, it seemed like, for that deficiency to really rear its ugly head last weekend.
Yeah, when you look at LSU, they missed tackles the first half, maybe 7 or 8. Bowling Green, a couple of those big plays. So, and we saw even the Notre Dame game, starting back to, if York makes that tackle, maybe they beat Notre Dame. So, a small concern. You got to have some concerns, but way too many of them. Way too many times that they hit and should have been stopped. So how do you, and I was laughing when we were listening to Elko talk or listening to the defensive coordinator. How do you get better at tackling in week 10? I want to see how that happens.
Well, that's a good point. On offense, of course, losing Le'Veon Moss for the season is a huge blow to what A&M's offensive identity has become. I mean, A&M has really become kind of that roughshod run between the tackles. We're going to smash you in the mouth and get 4 yards in a pile of dust, right? Cloud of dust, whatever that saying is. And just kind of wear you down throughout the game and win in the fourth quarter. Amari Daniels has been better. I think he's been effective. I'm curious, though, what A&M's offensive identity looks like. Mike Elko wasn't really going to show his cards if they're going to move anybody to running back, whether that's maybe Terry Bussey, although he seems pretty set at keeping him at receiver. A&M needs kind of an explosive threat there. But, thinking about the possibility of, do you move a defensive back over to running back that maybe played there in high school, or another guy on the offense? It's going to be interesting to see what A&M does, considering what their identity has become.
Yes, because I was waiting to see how much they were going to add Marcel Reed's running ability to the mix now that he's established as a starter. You got Moss, and like you mentioned, I like the way A&M could wear down people with Moss and Daniels. Hard to wear them down with Daniels and Smith, or even Daniels, Smith, and Bussey. Bussey's not a physical runner. He's going to go ahead and maybe hit the big home run. So I think they might have to use Reed's legs more, because then you got the fast and the power. It'll be interesting to see moving forward. That's a little bit of Colin Klein, see what he can do. But you're right. And also, I feel that they will get better. Basanta should be back hopefully soon at left guard. I think there were definitely attrition there when you think the last 2 games they didn't have him. So I'll be real interested. And we might not know, probably won't know against New Mexico State, because probably you could be left guard and they wouldn't have any problems. But a bigger test. And I like the way the schedule goes, because get the guys back, hopefully Basanta, see what your identity is, and then have the final pre-test before Texas at Auburn.
The schedule really kind of does crescendo these last 3 weeks.
Crescendo, I like that.
That's an SAT word.
I can't spell it, but I like it, yeah.
one thing both sides of the ball need to clean up for A&M that's evident is the penalties. And we've talked about this for the last few weeks, and, penalties, it finally caught up to A&M, and none was more evident than the last drive of the first half. When A&M took the lead on that touchdown pass with, a minute something to go, that stadium was quiet. Like, it was dead quiet, and that place had been rocking throughout the first half. And then South Carolina, A&M almost gets the fumble, and then A&M gives them 35 yards in penalties. They get the field goal, tie it up, and, I think it just kind of changed the mood of where things were, whereas A&M was about to just take over the game versus now you're even footing again, and South Carolina gets that glimmer of hope back in their eye, and they really ran with that in the second half.
Yeah, bad penalties. Jay Bateman says, Shamir Turner, the late hit on the quarterback. Okay, I can see that, but he's had too many personal fouls and those kind of deals. Of all people, Will Lee just mugs the receiver to get holding on what would have been a fumble turnover, and when he's your best cornerback, you can't do that, but A&M's done that. Adams has made a lot of plays. He's going to get probably one or two motion penalties and maybe a hold, and, don't get me wrong, I always say there's going to be 6 or 7 penalties per game. But how are those penalties made, and how do you recover for them or cover for them or cover up? And A&M had been able to cover up until South Carolina. So moving forward, these next 2 weeks, even though they're playing teams that they should beat, I'm going to look at those penalties. They got to get those under control.
Well, the question everybody wants to know, is A&M a contender, or are they a pretender after winning 7 in a row, but then turning around and losing it by 24 at South Carolina?
Here's the deal. A&M wins out. They're going to college football playoff. If you'd have told me before the season A&M was going to be able to say that with three games to go, hey, it's a great season right now. Now, does it stay a great season? They got to beat Texas. And then it comes down to good or whatever. A&M's got everything in front of them. The problem is they already had maybe it done if they beat South Carolina. They might have been in almost if they'd have beat South Carolina. And that's what hurts a lot of Aggies, because as an older guy, I can say that, I say, who cares, always next year. Well, the people that follow this program only from 98 have now been saying next year for 2.5 decades. And that's when it hurts, because you're not promised a lot more decades or years. You got to take advantage of the situation that they're in.
Well, and not to mention, if A&M were to make the playoff in Mike Elko's first year, just what that could do for the trajectory of the program. A&M's obviously got a lot of financial support. You saw what happened when 2012 happened and the money that came from that. A&M obviously doesn't have a Johnny Manziel on this team, but in the new era of college athletics, how gung-ho are people going to be to support a football program? And it certainly helps when a team is winning, not to mention, Mike Elko, he's trying to get these inroads in with recruiting. The 2026 class is already shaping up to be pretty good. Sounds like A&M's in a few tight races to close out the 2025 class that's ranked in the top 10. There's a lot at stake here if A&M could finish 10-3, 11-3 versus 9-3 and go to a bowl game and possibly lose. 9-4 looks a lot different than 11-3 or 12-3.
Without a doubt. And everybody talks about athletics being your front porch. Well, I'll go a step further. Football is the living room or the entertainment room. When you're doing good in football, suddenly your bedroom's, your kitchen's okay. You think about A&M, if they could take care of, quote, the living room football, basketball should be a Sweet 16 team. College baseball's probably going to go back to College World Series. Softball. Why softball big sport? Because of ESPN. It's on there all the time. So what they're doing there, and then
volleyball's on the rise.
And volleyball. So you could have 4 or 5 of the what I call major programs, depends how you define it, right there winning. And that means Aggies show up, they're proud to wear their maroon, but they're also don't mind opening up their checkbook. Let's be honest, they've been holding off on their checkbooks lately because they had to pay Jimbo. No one likes paying for mistakes. That's the bottom line. But Mike Elko's helping put that mistake behind. And you're right, Alex. Big difference between 9 wins and a double digit. You get to the double digit, yeah, you want more. You want to go to the college football playoff. But if they get to a 10-win season this year, huge step forward.
Well, there's a lot of other things going on around A&M athletics right now. We haven't really gotten to get into the weeds of things elsewhere. Not going to get too far down into things, but just taking maybe a 30,000 foot view of where things are elsewhere. A&M soccer, obviously, their season's over. Disappointing finish. Had a rough go throughout the season, not being able to score goals. A&M had to win in the SEC tournament, couldn't get it done. They're going to miss the NCAA tournament for the second time in 4 years. Disappointing season for Coach G's squad. Volleyball, on the other hand, it's kind of been up and down. Get the big win over Texas, come home and get a win on Friday night, turn around and get swept by Mississippi State. And, it just seems like the A&M volleyball team, they're on the cusp of doing something good this year. They just haven't been able to find that consistency, especially in SEC play.
Haven't covered any games, matches. But here's the way I look at that. What Morrison's done is simply amazing. Once again, you look where the program was when he got here. To me, this is part of the growing pains. Because the other night, I go, wait a minute, they lost to Mississippi State and got swept. Mississippi State's not that good, not comparatively to NCAA tournament time season. But once again, volleyball was to the cusp there, being ranked. They were 26 the week before. You lose, you drop down. That's a yo-yo, and that's going to happen. You'd like to say, oh, yeah, just go right to the NCAA tournament, Sweet 16, second year or whatever. It takes time. So you have those growing pains. But what I could tell, the demeanor he has, whatever, the program is on the upswing. So you're going to have a little bit of, docked off the cliff a little bit, but get back up. So they'll be okay.
He's a little unorthodox given his background, a lot of the international scene, and seems like he's really got this A&M program really bought in. It seems like his players really like each other, and they mesh together well for the most part. So curious to see if A&M can, if they're playing good volleyball, they're hard to beat. So we'll see if they can, kind of circle the wagons and get on a run here down the stretch of the season.
He beat Texas, and you go back when A&M beat Texas in baseball, it mattered. When Tricia Ford in softball took him to a third game, beating Texas matters. That's the bottom line. He's already done that. And they hadn't beat Texas since
2010.
Since you were in diapers, so what can I say?
I'm not that young. Come on, Cease. Basketball season started. I see you still have your hearing after listening to thousands of children scream at the elementary school day. It's been kind of a rough start for both sides. A&M men dropped their season opener at Central Florida. They blew an 11-point lead down the stretch. Way too many fouls. Not enough opportunities on offense. A&M women really struggled to be good on offense in their season opener loss to A&M Corpus. They rebound today with a win over UTSA, but it doesn't seem like it's a very hopeful outlook for the women in particular. We'll start with them.
Yeah, here's the deal is when you look at her roster as far as experience, it's great that she has 3 starters back from an NCAA tournament team, but none of those 3 players are like all-conference type players. Now, AC, Achea Kubali, she's pretty good.
I'm impressed you pronounced her name right.
No, it was lucky. Trust me. I said it real fast in case I didn't do it.
Sahara Jones.
Sahara. I've got her name right today in the postgame.
There we go.
But anyway, so this team could struggle a little bit. They have a lot of young talent and a lot of talent. 4 players didn't play last year. So it's hard to judge where this team is, but the honesty of it is they were picked 11th and 13th in the conference in the preseason polls. That's not a good place to be. So Joni and her girls are going to have to outwork a lot of people to get up where they want to be. They want to be in the top 68, and right now I would say they're definitely not in the top 68. Not as buzz when you go lose. Anybody in the Big 12 can really play basketball. So losing at UCF is no disgrace at all, might even help them in the long run. But this is becoming a little bit more of a basketball school because what Gary Blair did, Buzz has come in and what he's been able to do. But they need to make the Sweet 16, and Joni needs to get back to the tournament. That's the bottom line. We're sitting here, it's November 9th or 10th, whatever day it is right now.
7th.
I'm way ahead of everybody. But the deal is, that's the expectation. When we talked about the front porch in football, I mean, I'm not selling anything. They make the money. They're under pressure. Buzz should get to the Sweet 16. Joni should get to the tournament. If they don't, it's not a good season.
You know, talked with Buzz today. They're playing East Texas A&M tomorrow. A&M's Board of Regents officially changed A&M Commerce's name today.
Wow.
Fun fact. I'm curious if they're going to get the
New
Jerseys. That'd be kind of cool.
Maybe just Velcro, and they just put those.
just
those
get some duct tape.
Yeah, duct tape.
Right in Sharpie.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway,
skins and shirts are both A&M.
Yeah, A&M obviously disappointed with the outcome of Monday's opener. Really felt like they were pulling away and then let it slip away from them. A&M's formula for success is going to look pretty similar to what it was last year, right? They get offensive rebounds, they get second chance points, they draw fouls, they get to the free throw line, they make free throws. Central Florida kind of beat A&M at its own game with the free throw part. Buzz mentioned how a third of their points came off free throws. A&M just fouled too much. And, A&M obviously is still missing Zurich Phelps, who goes by Zoo, by the way. I got to learn what's up with that. But he's supposed to be a guy, they're really missing what Tyrese Radford brought to the table. Phelps is a guy that they are hoping will fill that void in kind of a different way. He's built different than what Radford does, but he's a facilitator, he's a good scorer, he's a great defender, and he hasn't been able to play yet. So A&M's still trying to get its team back to full strength. Wade Taylor, a good sign was, although he didn't score at a higher rate than what he could have, 7 assists to 2 turnovers. That's a good step forward for him. A&M's going to have to find more scorers than what Taylor can do, because they're not going to be able to put the game on his back every single time in these big game situations, even though he can drop 30 or 40 points on any given night.
Oh yeah, you don't want to wear out your big guy before the tournament gets here, or big league showdowns, because it's a long season. We see this in basketball a lot of time. Even the great teams might lose 1 or 2 games just because it's so hard, particularly when you're ranked. When A&M was ranked, we'll see if they keep ranked. When you're ranked, that's bullseye. And there's one sport where 5, 6 guys or gals can bond together and beat just about anybody in the country. It's basketball. So that's the beauty of basketball, and it's nice to know where everybody is right off the bat.
A&M's got a good tandem at forward, I think, between Solomon Washington and Minnesota transfer Pharrell Payne. I think Payne, what he brings to the table, he's a big guy that's strong and very athletic. That I think is going to bring a different dimension to A&M's big man game this season that they didn't quite have last year. Washington was a guy that really emerged down the stretch of conference play, but what Payne brings in his more traditional center type role that is a more modern build with how athletic some of these guys are going these days, I think what he brings to the table is really going to help A&M throughout the course of this season.
Well, we're seeing in every sport, there's so many transfers in all sports. I mean, Joni's got a few too. You just can't go out there in 1 or 2 games and say, oh, wow, man, that team's got great chemistry. No, it's going to take a while. I don't care how many practices you have. When you get somebody in your face and the game's on the line, it's a little bit different. And, we'll see where these teams are by the time conference rolls around. We'll know what they're about a little bit more, like you said. What is the identity of A&M? They're going to rely too much on Taylor? Hopefully not, because we see in the long run that doesn't help out. You can't have – as good as he is, he can take a game over, but you don't want him to have to take a game over time after time.
Well, Cease, I think we covered all of our bases. What say you?
I'm ready for a bye. Last time A&M had a bye, not as good a lineup for Saturday football as this one. When you got Georgia and Ole Miss, LSU and Alabama, this is a good bye week for A&M. As I sat on the couch with my dogs and watch a lot of football. Who's
Tuggle's pick this week or Chester's pick, for LSU Bama?
I don't remember. I was a little bit I was not feeling that good when we did their picks yesterday. But Chester's been on a real slump lately. I think he was feeling bad for Ben, and Ben passed away today. So as a dog owner, I can relate to that because I love my dogs. And when I've had to put one down, there's nothing worse than putting a dog down.
Well, hey, be sure to check theeagle.com for all of our coverage on A&M athletics. We'll be back next week on the Miami Nation podcast.